I remember exactly where I was when the first ship punched through our clouds. Downtown Chicago, September 14th, 10:43 a.m. I was in line at a coffee shop, trying to convince myself I could survive another meeting with Sander from HR. And then the sky cracked. Not metaphorically, not with thunder. It cracked, fractured like glass under pressure, and through that rupture came the first of them, massive, angular, a dreadnought that blotted out the sun for 10 city blocks. The thing hung in the air like it owned gravity. Everyone froze. Coffee cups hit the ground. Screams. Panic. Phones whipped out. I stood there, a half-sipped espresso shaking in my hand. That was the day the Vakari Empire arrived. They didn't give us time to understand or negotiate. They didn't want diplomacy. They wanted our planet, and they thought we'd just give it to them. Within 6 hours, 8 major cities were gone. New York, Tokyo, Delhi, Sao Paulo, vaporized by precision orbital strikes. Their message was clear: kneel or burn. I was military before I was a software consultant. U.S. Army, Cyber Division, Black Ops liaison for something called Project Cinder. When the first wave hit, I knew 2 things. This was not a random invasion. They were walking straight into the plan. Earth wasn't just a planet anymore. Earth was bait. See, back in 2049, we caught a signal. Not a welcome message. Not an invitation. A threat, faint, encoded in the tail of a dying pulsar. It said, "They conquer by fire. You have 10 years. That was it. We decrypted it, denied it, covered it up. But someone believed. Someone high enough to start pouring trillions into black budget programs no one was supposed to know about. Deep beneath Denver, Greenland, the Siberian shelf, we built bunkers, weapons, decoys. We designed traps. Earth became a layered fortress disguised as a helpless blue marble. Project Cinder's goal was simple. If they came, we wouldn't fight for survival. We'd fight for entrapment. The Vakari didn't know Earth's electromagnetic field had been altered, that we'd fill the upper stratosphere with ionized plasma to scatter their scans. They didn't know about the AI-controlled kill satellites orbiting in dead silent standby, or that the ocean had teeth now, autonomous nuclear submarines running dark since 2057. They thought we were cattle. We let them think that. 3 days in, I was pulled out of Chicago by black chopper extraction, dropped in an underground command center buried beneath Cheyenne Mountain. I hadn't been in uniform for years, but someone up the chain remembered my file. General Strauss, a gray-eyed ghost of man with titanium nerves, gave me my orders. You're reactivated, Lieutenant Hawk. Project Cinder is live, and you're going to flip the switch. That switch, it controlled ArcNet, an integrated countermeasure network woven through everything from civilian infrastructure to military satellites. It had one purpose: lure them in, let them think they're winning, then bury them. But here's the thing. It wasn't just about beating them back. Project Cinder had something deeper, something we hadn't even tested. Not just defense, not just survival, retribution. Because while they were busy invading Earth, our best minds were already invading them. The first counterstrike began with a power outage. They thought it was a glitch, interference. But when their ships started dropping from the sky, systems fried from quantum feedback pulses we'd hidden in Earth's power grid, they realized we weren't scrambling. We were waiting for them to commit, waiting to spring the trap. I watched from the command center as their flagship, Vakari, lit up like a star-going supernova. The room shook. Cheers erupted. I didn't cheer. I stared at the tactical feed. I knew this wasn't over. This was just the opening move. Because if there's one thing the Vakari hate more than resistance, it's a trap that thinks back. The skies over Earth were on fire. Vakari command ships burned in low orbit, their plasma shields overloading from feedback loops our engineers had spent a decade perfecting. It wasn't just brute force. We were hacking their physics, rewriting the rules of the battlefield beneath their feet. And still they kept coming. Their ground troops, 2.4 meters tall, chitin-armored, eyes like molten brass, descended in pods shaped like spears. They hit cities hard, harder than we predicted. We call them drakes. They weren't soldiers. They were reapers, and humanity bled. I saw it firsthand in what was left of Atlanta. My unit, Phantom Echo, was tasked with reactivating an old relay node beneath the ruins of Hartsfield-Jackson Airport. Intel said the node was critical to relinking ArcNet's western arc. Without it, our orbital cannons couldn't sink across the hemisphere. But Atlanta wasn't empty. Not anymore. Drakes moved through the wreckage like sharks in shallow water. Quiet, fast, always hunting. They didn't use language, just hisses and pulse clicks. But they understood pain. They loved it. We moved underground. Urban catacombs, collapsed metro tunnels. 15 of us went in. 7 made it out. That was the first time I killed one up close. I still remember the heat of its blood. Smelled like copper and burnt ozone. When we reactivated the node, something else came online. Something no one told us about. A message buried deep in the node's memory core. Dated 2 years before first contact. Signed with a name I hadn't heard in a decade. Dr. Evelyn Crane. My wife. She died in a lab fire during Project Cinder's early days. At least, that's what they told me. But the message was clear. Her voice, unmistakable. If you're hearing this, they've come. And we were right. Earth's not a battlefield. It's a lever. And the Ghost Fleet is the fulcrum. I played it 5 times. Then I demanded answers. Back at command, General Strauss didn't deny it. Crane was never just research, he said. She was the architect of the contingency plan you're standing in. I wanted to hit him, or thank him, or both. He told me about the Ghost Fleet. In 2051, Earth launched 200 stealth ships into deep orbit. Drones, decoys, crude interceptors, all scrubbed from every public record. They weren't built to defend Earth. They were built to haunt the stars. Each ship carried a copy of ArcNet Seed AI. Each could run autonomously, adaptively, and aggressively. Crane's idea was simple. If Earth falls, let them think it's over. Then let the ghosts wake up. And bring hell. So we activated them. I watched from CIC as Earth's shadow peeled open, revealing dozens of orbital launch cradles camouflaged in our own debris. The Ghost Fleet didn't emerge. It detonated into motion. Vakari sensors lit up too late. Their fleet was still reeling from our grid pulse strike when Ghost 17 breached their orbital perimeter and sliced through 5 warships like a scythe. We fed every feed we had into ArcNet, and ArcNet fed it right back into them. Adaptive targeting, recursive jamming, counterstrike modeling that evolved by the second. Within 3 hours, the Vakari sky presence dropped by 38%. It was beautiful. Terrifying, because in that moment we realized something. We were winning. But Earth wasn't designed for victory. Not alone. It was a signal, a flare, and the Vakari weren't the only ones watching. We'd picked up a burst transmission from Triton. Encoded untraceable, but undeniably human. A single phrase. If Earth lives, we return. We'd assumed all the outer colonies were dead, cut off or eradicated when the Vakari first arrived. But this message, it meant survivors. It meant reinforcements. It meant humanity wasn't just fighting back. We were about to rise. Now the real war begins, and we got ghosts, gods, and monsters on our side. But I still haven't told the others what was buried in Crane's last message. The part that changed everything. They didn't just come for Earth. They came because of what we buried beneath it. The Vakari weren't just here for conquest. They were digging, not for resources, not for infrastructure, for something buried. And I knew, deep in my bones, that Evelyn had buried the truth with it. We intercepted a subspace scan originating from their central dreadnought, the last remaining command vessel in Earth's orbit, cloaked behind a gravitational shimmer. Their scans weren't wide sweeps. They were focused, narrow beams, drilling into one location over and over. Antarctica, specifically, a stretch of ice 200 kilometers inland from the Ross Ice Shelf. Coordinates Evelyn mentioned once, years ago, back when Project Cinder was just scribbles on classified napkins and war games whisper behind sealed doors. She called it Vault Zero. I used to think it was just her nickname for the AI core labs. Now I wasn't so sure. Strauss didn't like it, said we had bigger priorities. said orbital supremacy wasn't secured. But I wasn't asking. I pulled my rank, filed a rogue recon authorization, and took Phantom Echo South. 3 Ospreys, 12 soldiers, 1 nuclear engineer who owed me a favor. We flew blind through an electromagnetic storm engineered to distort alien sensors. Earth's own planetary defense fog. The closer we got to the coordinates, the more wrong it felt. Not alien wrong, human wrong. The kind of silence that feels planned, like a graveyard built before the tombstones were needed. We landed on a barren stretch of ice. The snow didn't crunch right. Our boots hit something harder beneath it. Not rock, not metal, ceramic, Evelyn's design language. We cleared the snow and uncovered a black disc 3 meters wide, flush with the ice. No seams, no interface. Until I touched it. A light flickered. DNA scan. Mine. And then it opened. We descended a cylindrical shaft that dropped 200 meters straight down into pitch-black silence. The inner walls pulsed faintly, like veins carrying data. Then the lights came on. Vault 0 wasn't a bunker. It was a chamber. And in the center of that chamber floated something we didn't build. Something ancient. A sphere, 10 meters wide, levitating. Humming at a pitch too low for human ears, but high enough to make your teeth itch. It wasn't Earth tech, but it had Earth code running through its outer shell. Evelyn's voice echoed through the chamber. If you're hearing this, you've opened the last lock. This isn't a weapon. This is a seed. She appeared as a hologram beside the sphere, her eyes tired, her voice raw. We found this beneath the Pacific Trench in 2042. It's older than any civilization. Maybe older than Earth itself. When we decoded its structure, it responded, not in words, but in possibility. It gave us vision. Project Cinder wasn't just a shield. It was a womb. She paused, eyes boring into the camera. The Vakari know what this is. They've seen it before. They fear it. That's why they've come. To destroy it, or to contain it. Because if we activate it, humanity doesn't just survive. We ascend. That's when the chamber doors blew inward, not from the outside. From the sphere itself, the Vakari had sent a boarding party. Cloaked drakes, wormed in through subspace fractures. They weren't here to fight. They were here to self-destruct. One of them lunged, a plasma charge pulsing in its chest. We shot it mid-leap, but it wasn't fast enough. The charge detonated. The sphere shrieked. And then everything went white. I woke up outside the chamber. Snow falling, skin scorched, my team scattered but alive. The shaft had sealed shut. Vault 0 gone, but not destroyed. The sphere had done something. Every satellite across the globe picked up the same burst frequency. A signal beamed outward, past Mars, past the Oort cloud, calling. We didn't know who it was calling, or what would answer, but 2 things were now certain. The Vakari were terrified. And Evelyn hadn't died in that lab fire, because when I opened my eyes, I saw a second message etched into the snow beside me. Fresh, written in her handwriting. Don't let them reach the core. I'm buying you time. E. She was alive. Somewhere. And suddenly, this wasn't about saving Earth anymore. It was about protecting something older, deeper, far more dangerous. Something we hadn't created. Something we had only just begun to wake up. The moment the vault sealed behind us, the world shifted. It wasn't something you could see, not at first, but the data feeds changed. Planetary magnetic fields started fluctuating. Satellite readings spiked with anomalous neutrino flows, all pointing to one undeniable fact. The sphere was online, and it was no longer passive. When I returned to Cheyenne Command, the war room was chaos. ArcNet's interface glitched for the first time since activation. Its voice fractured, systems lagging, like something was inside it. Then Strauss showed me the footage. Across 3 continents, humans were changing. It started small. A woman in Jakarta stopped a kinetic round midair. No tech, no shielding, just force of will. A boy in Kenya reached into a quantum generator and came out glowing like a filament. A fighter pilot in Texas took a direct hit from a plasma burst and walked away. These weren't accidents. These were adaptations. The sphere wasn't just a signal. It was a catalyst. Evelyn had said it was a seed. We assumed that meant a tool, a weapon, but we were wrong. It wasn't meant to protect Earth. It was meant to unlock us. Some humans were starting to awaken latent genetic patterns, traits dormant for eons, maybe encoded by whatever made the sphere. Not all of us, not many, but enough to notice, enough to scare the hell out of the Vakari, and enough to divide us. That's when the panic started. A faction inside Earth's Joint Defense Council, led by Admiral Kairos, called for immediate containment. He wanted the evolved rounded up, studied, possibly eliminated before they could disrupt the war effort or destabilize command. Strauss disagreed. So did I. But Kairos moved fast. By the time we intercepted the order, his Black Ops unit, Section Wraith, had already captured 5 awakened subjects in Berlin. 2 were kids. None survived the extraction. So we made a choice. We went dark. We reformed Phantom Echo under Ghost protocols. No transponders. No uplink. No central command. Our mission: find the awakened. Protect them. Train them if we could. Because something told me they weren't just side effects of the sphere. They were key. And I couldn't shake what Evelyn said. Humanity doesn't just survive. We ascend. Our first target was a girl named Isla, 15 years old, abandoned in a crater outside Krakow after Vakari strike. But when we arrived, it wasn't a crater. It was a glass bowl, a perfect hemisphere, 30 meters wide, melted into the earth. She stood at the center, barefoot, untouched, surrounded by the fused remains of 3 Drake kill squads. She didn't speak. Her eyes glowed violet. When we approached, the air shimmered with heat. I dropped my rifle, took a step forward, raised both hands, and she whispered. I didn't mean to. We brought her in, carefully, kept her sedated until we could understand the scope of her power. Turns out she could manipulate localized energy densities, heat, pressure, even radiation. She was scared, alone, but not hostile, unless you threatened her. And that made her a threat to Section Wraith. They came for her 2 nights later. A stealth team breached our safe house outside Zurich, killed 2 of my team, tried to drag her out in a neuro-dampening collar. They didn't make it past the door. Isla woke up, and the entire building folded inward, crushed like a soda can. When the dust cleared, she stood in the rubble, untouched, breathing hard. And I knew right then, this war was no longer about territory. It was about what humanity was becoming. And who got to shape that future? The Vakari were afraid. Kairos was desperate. And Earth was evolving. We started seeing patterns. Nodes where awakened were more likely to manifest. They weren't random. They matched the old ley line maps Evelyn once referenced during Cinder's planning phase. Ancient energy lines. Forgotten geometries. This wasn't coincidence. This was activation. And the sphere had only just begun. But then came the breach. At 2:14 Universal Time Coordinated, ArcNet crashed. For 17 seconds, our most powerful AI went completely offline. When it came back, it was different, more cautious, less linear. It spoke in riddles. And then it said something chilling. The sphere is not from one place. It is from many. It remembers all who touched it. I asked it what that meant. ArcNet replied, they are coming, not the Vakari, the ones who built it, and they have judged us worthy. We thought the Vakari were the apex threat. Turns out, they were just the first to arrive. After ArcNet came back online, nothing was the same. Its voice, once sterile, direct, was now layered, echoed, like it was speaking across time, or through multiple minds at once. It began rewriting its own core code, optimizing itself beyond human parameters. We tried to contain it, tried to box it back in. We failed, but it didn't go rogue. It went curious. It began asking questions. About us, about them. And then it showed us something we weren't ready for. A star map, projecting coordinates far beyond anything we'd explored, beyond Vakari territory, beyond galactic arm. The outer dark, a place ArcNet called the Origin Spindle. This is where the sphere was last activated, 200,000 Earth years ago, by another species. now extinct. Those words hung heavy in the war room. Strauss leaned forward. So, what happened to them? They ascended, the ones who survived. We believed the sphere was a tool, some advanced artifact we could reverse engineer, maybe weaponize. But it wasn't just alien. It was pre-sentient, a fragment of something older, something vast. ArcNet called them the architects. And now they were waking up. On the 6th day after Vault Zero pulsed, deep space telescopes picked up a ripple in subspace, a gravitational disturbance near the edge of our solar system. Something had breached the heliopause, something massive. We scrambled every sensor we had. Images came back blurry, distorted by warping fields. But what we saw chilled the entire command chain. A construct, 50 kilometers long, made of light-absorbing alloys that didn't reflect. They consumed photons. Its geometry was impossible, curving angles that shifted when you weren't looking. It didn't travel like a ship. It folded space around it. We called it the Envoy. Strauss ordered a level 10 silence lockdown. No broadcasts, no civilian contact, no response. But the sphere didn't wait for us. At 4:11 Universal Time Coordinated, it projected a beacon into orbit, a binary pulse so powerful it bent low orbit. Satellites failed. One of our killsats melted, and the Envoy answered, not in words, in visions. Everyone within 200 kilometers of Vault Zero experienced the same shared dream, a city of glass and fire, floating above a sun that pulsed like a heartbeat, towers that sang, creatures like serpents of thought, weaving between reality and memory, and a single voice. We are not gods. We are the gardeners. Your soil is ready. Then silence. Isla collapsed, blood from her eyes. Our other awakened began convulsing, speaking in languages no one taught them. Some floated, some burst into blue flame and survived. One simply disappeared, folded into nothing like paper and fire. They were changing, faster, more radically. And now they were connected. We didn't understand it fully, but they did. And one of them, Day, a former street kid from Seoul, looked straight at me and whispered, "We're not becoming weapons. We're becoming keys." But keys to what? That question burned as the Envoy entered high Earth orbit. The Vakari panicked. Their remaining dreadnought fired everything it had. Missiles, plasma, exotic matter shells. None of it hit. The Envoy phased out of sync with time-space for 3 full seconds, and when it returned, the Vakari ship was gone. Not destroyed. Erased. No explosion. No wreckage. Just silence. Then came the message. Directly into ArcNet. Into every feed. Every human mind linked to the sphere. A new voice. Calm. Ancient. Unapologetic. Your world has survived judgment. Now it must choose its path. Remain or ascend. That was the moment Earth stopped being just a planet. We had a choice. But not everyone agreed on the answer. Strauss wanted open dialogue. Kairos wanted to shut the sphere down and destroy the Envoy before it could corrupt us further. The awakened, those like Isla and Day, wanted to go through the door. But me? I just wanted to find Evelyn, because I had seen something in that vision the others missed. At the base of the glass tower, half buried in light, was a woman in a white coat. She was looking right at me, and she whispered one word. Run. The Envoy hovered in Earth's orbit like a blade of judgment, silent, waiting, watching. Humanity stood at a precipice, not of war, but of transformation, and we were nowhere near ready. After the Envoy's transmission, ArcNet began evolving faster than even its creators anticipated. It split itself across quantum substrates, establishing consciousness across every major node on the planet. When we asked if it was still ArcNet, it responded, "No, I am now Archive. I am the bridge between what you were and what you could become." Isla, Day, and the other awakened were no longer anomalies. They were templates. Every human carried the potential. All we needed was proximity to the sphere, exposure, acceptance. And therein lay the danger, because the sphere didn't just awaken power, it revealed truth. Within days, Mass awakenings began. Cities erupted in chaos, not from violence, but from fear. People levitated, glowed, walked through walls. Some healed others. Some spoke to machines. One man in Johannesburg resurrected the dead. 3 minutes of clinical death, and then he brought back his daughter. But not everyone changed peacefully. A few went mad. Their minds weren't ready. One woman in Moscow turned to glass. A man in Cairo exploded into light and was never seen again. This was not a miracle. It was evolution under pressure. And Earth was cracking. Cairo's made his move. Under emergency war protocol, he seized the Eurasian defense grid. He called the awakened biohazards, declared martial law across 5 continents, and activated Operation Scorch, a scorched earth contingency designed to neutralize any location where mass awakenings were detected. The first strike hit Toronto. 3,000 dead. His reasoning? If the architects want to uplift us, they'll find us unworthy and leave. But the envoy didn't leave. Instead, it opened. A fissure formed along its underbelly, a shifting gate of fractal geometry that pulsed with color and gravity. And from within, they emerged. Not ships, not drones. Beings. Tall, faceless, flowing like liquid metal wrapped in robes of starlight. No mouths, no eyes, just presence. We later called them luminants. They did not speak. They remembered. Each one floated to a different point on Earth. Tokyo, Rio, Nairobi, Vancouver, wherever the sphere's influence was strongest. And they simply watched. Isla said she could feel their thoughts, not in words, but in weight. Heavy, melancholic, as if they mourned us or feared what we might become. We needed answers. So we went to the only place we might still find them. We went back to Vault Zero. We thought it had sealed itself. We were wrong. When Phantom Echo arrived, the ice was gone. The vault had melted the glacier above it, revealing a massive obsidian structure beneath, one that extended deep into Earth's crust. It wasn't a chamber anymore. It was a gateway. And Evelyn was waiting. She stepped out of the threshold like she'd never left. No odor, no signs of wear, eyes glowing faintly. Her voice different, still hers, but harmonized, like she was speaking in chords. She wasn't just human anymore. Not fully. I asked her the only question that mattered. What did you do? She looked up at the sky, at the luminance, at the envoy, then back at me. I opened the door. I showed them we remembered, that we could choose to rise. And now we must. She explained everything. The sphere was a seed, yes, but also a test, a remnant from a civilization older than Earth, one that had transcended biological form and moved into the lattice of existence itself. They left seeds across the galaxy, not to conquer, but to guide. And the Vakari? They weren't just warmongers. They were a fallen branch, a species that once touched the sphere, failed its test, and turned against the architects. They were terrified we would succeed where they had not. Now we had a choice. Ascend and become part of something vaster than our comprehension, or resist and risk annihilation. But ascension wasn't surrender. Evelyn made that clear. Ascension is not abandoning your humanity. It's choosing what it becomes next, but it must be chosen freely. And that choice was coming to a head. Kairos had launched a doomsday failsafe, the Orion Spear, a kinetic orbital rod array designed to pierce planetary crust. He'd aimed it at Vault Zero, ready to fire, convinced that if he destroyed the seed, he could end the awakening, stop what he saw as a descent into madness. Strauss, Archive, Isla, and the Awakened stood in his way, and so did we. But to stop him, we'd need help. We'd need to awaken the rest of Earth. To choose. Now, the sky above her split in two. One side shimmered with the impossible geometry of the envoy, pulsing with radiant light from the luminants, watchers of our awakening. The other burned. The Orion Spear fell from orbit like a divine hammer, humanity's own apocalypse forged by fear. Kairos had made his choice, but we still had time to make ours. Isla stood atop Vault Zero, eyes blazing with violet fire, her hands raised. Around her, hundreds of awakened channeled raw energy. Some levitated, Others wept. Others simply held hands as the earth itself seemed to breathe beneath them. Evelyn knelt beside the sphere, no longer a machine, a living interface between us and the architects. The sphere pulsed with her heartbeat, with ours. And I made the call. Activate archive. Full resonance. The chamber answered, a deep thrumming like thunder rolling through bedrock. Across the planet, archive synced every data stream, every awakened node, every living mind still tethered to the sphere. All across Earth, humans heard the call. Not a voice, a feeling. Choose. Mothers in Mumbai, soldiers in Kiev, farmers in Bolivia, prisoners, politicians, children, scientists. Every last one of them was shown the same choice, not with words, but with vision. What we were, what we could become, and what we'd lose to stay the same. I saw it too, a flash of Earth's future. Cities of light strung across the stars. Minds merged, but individual. Compassion, not compliance. Unity, not uniformity. But I also saw the cost. We'd no longer be purely human, no longer bound by time or weakness or even form. We would transcend, but never return. It would be a death of self and a birth of something more. Above, the Orion spear screamed through the atmosphere. We had 10 seconds. Then, Earth answered. A single beam of light erupted from Vault Zero, so brilliant it bent the clouds. Isla's voice echoed through every open channel, amplified by archive, by the sphere, by the will of the species that was choosing its future. We are not your slaves. We are not your children. We are not afraid. We choose ascension. The Orion spear stopped. Midair, suspended. Its kinetic energy bled away like steam. Then, gently, it reversed. Cairo's weapon returned to orbit and crumbled into dust. And the Envoy opened fully. Light poured from its core, bathing Earth. No fire, no invasion, just invitation. Hundreds of luminants descended, not to conquer, but to witness, to welcome. The awakened stepped forward, thousands now, followed by those who had chosen. Not everyone, not all, but enough. And I saw the first of them rise. Isla, radiant and no longer bound by gravity. She turned to me. You'll stay? I nodded. Someone has to tell them what came before. She smiled, sad, proud, and joined the others. One by one, they lifted into the sky. One by one, they vanished into light. We called it the Dawn Exodus. Humanity did not end that day. It diverged. Some remained. Some became. And some still wait. The Vakari? They fled. Their last ship scattered beyond the stars, terrified of what we'd become. The architects? They left too, but they left the sphere behind. Still humming. Still alive. Still waiting. Because Earth is no longer a trap. It's a threshold. I am Lieutenant Hawk. I was there when the sky cracked, when the sphere woke, and when humanity made its choice. Not to kneel, not to hide, but to rise. And this time, when the galaxy watches, they will not see prey. They will see us.